各位傳媒朋友早晨，多謝大家今朝嚟呢個記者會。疫情關係咧，請大家喺記者會入邊咧時刻佩戴口罩同埋保持社交距離。我哋而家先睇下行政長官有冇發言，如果冇，我哋就直接進入提問。
因為我今朝嘅時間比較緊迫，我請大家提問啦，好嗎？
左手邊前排呢位記者。
林太早晨啊，蘋果想問翻呢，有啲即係呼吸系統專科醫生啊，梁子超咧都講翻呢，即係批評你哋設立嗰個受限區域嗰啲準則，好似即係唔係好清楚咯。咁亦都即係認為咧未能夠切斷嗰個傳播鏈。咁點解其實咁多嗰啲確診個案，嗰啲太古城啊、荃灣綠楊啊，都唔見政府有做呢個即係受限區域嗰個安排，而要封一啲即係可能過去2星期都冇個案嗰啲大廈，仲要即係都發現咧，其實好多都係零確診。咁做法係咪即係有啲勞民傷財咧？令到其實有啲人質疑最大得益係咪嗰啲檢測公司咧？咁第二就係即係之前你都冇預先通知傳媒底下，即係進行咗個述職啦，即係點解會有咁嘅安排？咁啊，習近平主席都有講話，好擔心即係香港嗰個第4波嘅疫情啦。咁你覺得係咪即係都反映其實政府嗰個抗疫工作佢係即係有啲不滿咧？咁最尾就係嗰個國藥嗰個滅活疫苗。咁其實澳門嗰邊咧就話即係最快今個禮拜就會即係抵澳啦，呢啲疫苗。咁可能春節前後可以接種。咁但係香港個情況咧，因為你之前都即係提出咗話要即係攞呢啲疫苗啦，但係香港嗰啲疫苗專家顧問咧，亦都講明即係要有嗰個臨床報告先至可以即係運過嚟嘅。咁呢個矛盾你會點處理？會唔會即係繞過嗰個專家顧問委員會而去做呢個安排？唔該。
好多謝3個提問。第一咧就喺採取呢種我哋叫做限制及強制檢測嘅宣告嘅行動嚇，而家一共做咗8次喺各區嘅行動咧，係早前已經講咗個準則㗎啦，咁啊可以喺呢度再重複一次啦。個準則咧就係3方面嘅，第一咧就係公共衛生嚇，公共衛生包括確診個案只係其中之一嚇。當然喺流行病理學或者喺追蹤個案裏邊有任何令到我哋做公共衛生嘅同事有所擔憂嘅因素，都係要考慮在內嘅。咁所以唔係單純以出現咗幾多個確診個案為一個唯一甚至係決定性嘅標準。第二個因素係環境同埋樓宇嘅因素嚇。咁因為有一啲環境嘅衛生啊，或者一啲樓宇嘅狀態。譬如啲渠管啊，或者甚至係樓宇嘅管理，譬如係3無嘅大廈咧，都會令到如果出現確診個案咧，嗰個病毒傳播嘅風險係較高嘅。第3個因素咧就係能力嘅配置。即係話咧，即使係想做好多，但係都要睇下嗰個能力是否喺同一時間咧能夠可以處理。咁所以係綜合考慮咗3方面嘅因素咧而作出決定。我留意到昨日嘅記者招待會同埋今日嘅報道咧，有啲人認為好似係唔係好清楚究竟係邊個做決定。咁我今日講得大家好清楚，其實睇法律就好清楚嘅。喺第599章裏邊，針對呢一種嘅宣告咧，嗰個權力係屬於食物及衛生局局長。食物及衛生局局長咧就係按住喺唔同嘅部門就住3方面嘅因素俾佢嘅資料咧，而作出每一日要進行呢種宣告嘅地區咧係喺邊度。咁啊，希望喺呢度講得清楚啦。咁大家又記得咧，我哋做完第一次行動之後咧，我總結咗對於呢一類嘅行動進行咧有3個要求。第一咧就個行動要保密。咁大家都睇到啦，我哋都最近係做到保密㗎啦嚇。雖然都會有啲猜測，但係一般嘅居民都話嚟到啦嚇，我哋都唔知咁。呢個就係行動保密嘅效果啦。第二咧就個範圍要聚焦。第一次喺佐敦嘅範圍係好大嘅，雖然從其他地方睇香港嗰個係豆腐潤咁細嘅地方啦，但對我哋嚟講咧，要一個非常之大嘅範圍嚇，超過150座嘅樓宇。咁所以而家比較聚焦嘅範圍咧，我哋內部評估咧，大概係涉及1000個居民度。太多咧，我哋係難以可以滿足到第3個要求，就係時間要壓縮。而家壓縮咗嘅時間咧，係盡量維持喺12小時，即係話由7點鐘開始宣告生效， 到第二朝7點鐘咧就要俾市民接受咗強制檢測陰性，帶咗手帶之後咧可以離開。咁所以就係相當清晰嘅嚇。就好啦，你講嗰個成效喺公共衛生嘅領域咧，我都扮專家講過幾次㗎啦。喺公共衛生嘅領域咧，唔係睇到有病去醫好個病咧就叫成功，係防止呢個病咧係發生，特別係傳染性嘅病。咁所以好多係預防性嘅工作，希望走喺傳播感染之前。咁所以唔能夠單單以我哋做咗一個行動，揾出幾多個確診個案嚟到去量度嗰個成效。揾唔到確診個案，其實都係説明咗咧呢個曾經因為剛才2個因素，公共衛生、樓宇衛生，令到我哋擔心嘅區域咧，起碼喺第一陣呢個強制檢測裏邊咧，佢相對係安全嘅。我只能講相對，因為個情況係會變嘅嚇。好似我哋早期去評論一啲全民強制檢測，除非將整個香港封鎖一段長嘅時間，否則人嘅流動性咧係令到佢仍然會帶嚟一啲風險。不過而家嘅事實説明咧，其實各個地方都係用呢啲聚焦式嘅強制嚟到檢測，係好難咁大範圍咧去進行呢個檢測嘅。咁所以個有效性係喺度，係明顯。不過當然咧，就每一次選擇做邊個嘅限制檢測區咧，係科學，亦都係判斷，係嘛？因為有陣時係真係唔可能係100%係科學性、係機械性咁啊，知道咧呢個區咧係最值得做嘅嚇。所以我唔覺得咧係一個勞民傷財，係一個非常之值得做，亦都係有部分市民咧。係喺好早期咧就要求我哋做全港性，不過我哋覺得全港性就真係可能係個效果有限啦，而且係動員非常之多人啦，同埋涉及非常之多嘅公帑啦嚇。我想特別喺呢度回應你講話係咪益咗啲檢測公司呢句説話係講唔出嘅嚇。今次每一間嘅同我哋合約有即係一齊做合約夥伴嚟到做呢個工作嘅私營化驗所，係全心全力以服務市民為目的咧去參與呢啲行動嚇。據說咧我哋早前嘅合約嘅單價每一個檢測240蚊咧，係遠遠歸唔到本，大家好容易計到嘅啫。240蚊，如果喺曾經一個做過呢個強制限制嘅咧，可能做咗300個檢測。240蚊乘300蚊，大家容易知道幾多錢啦。但係你落去睇下，佢哋開咗咁多嘅即係流動檢測站，12小時以上，咁多人喺度採樣，仲有翻去化驗所要化驗，仲要喺咁短時間嚟到去日以繼夜咁樣去化驗。所以請還我哋呢啲私營化驗所嘅合約商咧個公道啊！我有責任咧係講呢番説話，我希望大家跟咗呢啲檢測咁耐咧，對於我哋嘅私營化驗所咧都係要公道嚇。第二咧就係述職嘅安排係中央嘅事權嚟嘅啊，中央點樣安排行政長官述職咧？行政長官就係全面配合。咁所以由於疫情嘅關係，我相信係兩地嘅疫情關係，因為早前咧喺北京亦都有一啲零散式嘅感染啦。就係決定咧，中央決定咧，2020，我今次嘅述職係2020年度嘅述職咧，就係以視頻嚟到去進行，咁亦都係中央嘅規矩啦。就喺述職之前完成之前咧，係不向外公佈。但係述職完成之後咧，已經係馬上喺內地啦，即係透過新華社、中央電視台同埋我自己咧，我哋咧亦都係出咗新聞公佈嚟到講呢個述職嘅情況啦。喺公開報導嘅部分呢，習主席係非常之關心香港嘅疫情。當然見到而家我哋仲喺第4波呢，習主席以一向關心香港嘅態度呢，表示擔心呢個係完全合理。如果主席話你嘅疫情都睇嚟都仲嚴重，但係我咧就一啲都唔擔心，呢個都唔係好合理啦嚇。咁所以我相信主席都係出於關心同埋出於支持嚇，希望我哋咧自己加倍努力啦。中央亦都喺各方面給予支持咧，早日可以處理到呢一波嘅疫情嚇。第三方面咧就係喺內地 用呢個滅活嘅技術咧，起碼有兩隻啦，一隻就係我哋用預先採購協議係買咗或者買到嘅科興嘅疫苗啦，另一個咧就係我哋早前都有去探討過，但係咧結果係冇買到或者買唔到嘅國藥啦嚇。咁所以就我哋而家去希望盡快攞到嘅咧，就係有關呢啲內地疫苗嘅數據，讓到我哋嘅成立咗嘅專家咧，可以按住數據咧嚟到去推薦俾食物及衛生局局長嚟到去認可喺香港作緊急使用。咁所以我向中央即係要求支持咧，都係呢一方面，圍繞住呢一方面嘅支持嚇，冇話係特別攞邊隻疫苗。總之就希望喺內地研發同埋生產嘅疫苗咧，能夠係早日喺香港可以緊急使用。中央係明白香港緊急使用咧係有個法律框架，換句話說咧係有數據嘅提供咧，係俾專家嚟到去評估，然後交由局長咧嚟到去審批可以用嘅，所以並冇存在任何嘅矛盾嚇。多謝。
下一條，後排戴眼鏡嗰位男記者。
Hi, Mr. Sam, RTHK. So, 0 cases have been found in the 6 recent quick lockdowns the government imposed in the past few days. So how would you evaluate the effectiveness of such measures given that there has been no cases found? And also, how would you respond to expert suggestions that an ambush-style lockdown may not be really able to contain the spread of the virus because there are still many people who may be still in the incubation period? And also, what would you say to the residents who have been affected by the measures, and what would you do to help them, especially for these people who may have suffered from financial losses during the lockdown? And also, will the government consider replacing the mainland vaccine Sinovac with other vaccines, given that the company still has not provided sufficient clinical data about the vaccine? And how confident are you that the Hong Kong will still be able to get its first batch of vaccines by the end of this month, and also roll out the vaccination program as scheduled? And also, there's a media report saying that you had a one-on-one meeting with the Chief Justice last week, just days ahead of Jimmy Lai's bail hearing yesterday. Could you confirm whether you had such a meeting with the Chief Justice? And if so, did you talk to him about the case? And also, how would you respond to concerns that it may not be appropriate for you to meet the Chief Justice privately? Thank you.
There are altogether 5 questions. I'll try to answer, but you will be sort of preventing other colleagues from asking because my time is running out. I try to answer them more succinctly. First of all, as I have said many times, in terms of public health, a lot of the work done is preventive. In fact, to have zero transmission, zero infection is the best ever public health achievement that could be made by every authority. So the purpose of doing compulsory tests and doing this restriction testing declaration, of course, is with that objective in mind, that we want to achieve 0 case for the whole community. It's not just one building or one district. So we will continue to do this type of compulsory testing in order to identify any remaining silent transmission cases in community. But to have achieved a 0 case, that is all residents being tested within that period were negative, is also a good sign that while you look at it, you may be worried from the public health or the building hygiene point of view about a particular area. But having gone through this test, at least the residents are much more assured that they are not living in a highly infectious area. So this is something that we'll continue to do. But as I have explained, we are choosing these areas or buildings for this sort of testing, restriction testing declaration based on a series of factors. It is not an ad hoc or arbitrary decision as such. But the number of confirmed cases in that building or district is only one of the factors. Now, this is, of course, not the only instrument or measure that the Hong Kong SAR government is adopting in order to contain the latest wave. We have been doing a lot of things, and I would refer you to read my latest monthly report on the government's efforts in fighting COVID-19, because that was a 12-month report, so I used that occasion to do a little bit of summary of the things that we are doing. It's an 8-pronged approach, covering preventing a spread from imported cases, to beefing up our capacity in testing, quarantine, isolation, and so on. And we need the public support. And I hope that the media will help us to encourage residents to participate in compulsory testing and to cooperate with the government. Although we have not yet found any positive case in some of the latest RTD, that is a restriction testing declaration, we were at the same time worried that many of the units apparently have not responded to our door knocking. So whether there were individuals in that particular unit who refused to come out to do this compulsory testing is one of the things that will affect the effectiveness of the operation. Now, we try to minimize as far as possible the impact on the residents. So having done the first operation, which lasted for over 2 days, I have given this a mandate that they should aim to minimize the disruption or inconvenience to affected residents to 12 hours. So the recent operations that you have seen started from 7 p.m. when people went back to the home after work, and it should be finished by 7 a.m. as far as the so-called lockdown is concerned. So within that 12-hour period, the residents should have done their compulsory test, received the SMS indicating that they're negative and they're wearing a wristband, and they could leave by 7 a.m. back to work, go to school, and so on. So I hope residents will appreciate that we are already considerably reducing the impact on them. But as I said, this is a matter of joint efforts. It's not just the government, but the community at large has to join hands in order to contain the spread of the virus. Now, about vaccines, we have been very transparent with the community about the progress made in the procurement and the authorization of vaccines. 3 different types of vaccines have been purchased under the advanced purchase agreement, and one of them, the Fosun BioNTech, has been authorized. So the latest is this authorized vaccine will come by the end of this month. Of course, we will very much make sure that it will come. But as you have read the news in EU, there have been all sorts of things happening in the EU, and this vaccine is manufactured in Germany. So we have to watch the situation very carefully. But since we have a contract to buy, and I hope that all the other organizations will respect this contractual relationship and allow the BioNTech vaccine to come to Hong Kong by the end of this month. And the vaccination program will be able to start almost immediately, because we have got almost everything ready in terms of the number of community vaccination centers and staffing and so on. So the arrival of the vaccines and the rollout of the vaccination program we will try to condense the lead time in between. Now, about the other 2 vaccines, let's put aside AstraZeneca, because that vaccine has never promised to come early. That's the latter half of this year. And we could not blame them, because there's huge demand for AstraZeneca in Europe. The third is, of course, this vaccine manufactured in the mainland, the Sinovac. And we have been liaising very closely with the manufacturer. The latest is we will be given the data so that the experts could consider the data and recommend for the Secretary for Food and Health to authorize this vaccine for use. And I have also appealed to the Central People's Government if there's anything that the government could help us in ensuring the early arrival of Sinovac. The response given back to me is they will help. The Central People's Government will help. But for the time being, this is a sort of contractual purchase agreement between the Hong Kong SARG and Sinovac manufacturer. The final point is I have to categorically make this statement. As the chief executive of the Hong Kong SAR, I am obliged to uphold the independence of the judiciary. That was a duty imposed on me as a chief executive under the Basic Law, because I am not just the head of the Hong Kong SAR government. I am the one in charge of the entire Hong Kong SAR. And the independence of the judiciary, the efficiency of the judiciary, and the smooth operation of the judiciary are matters of concern to the chief executive. Okay? So I need to meet with the Chief Justice, who is the head of the judiciary, to discuss those matters within our respective jurisdiction. I think the judiciary has also issued a response along that lines that the CJ, whether the current CJ or the former CJ, they did meet with me from time to time when they have issues to raise. For example, about staffing, about resources, about new court buildings, about the appointment of judges, because I'm the authority to appoint judges. And in some of the local legislation, there's a requirement for the Chief Justice to nominate and for the CE to consult. So if we don't meet, how do we do that? So this is only normal, and I would advise against any reading into that sort of legitimate and proper meetings between the CE and the CJ as intervention into judicial independence. That was totally unacceptable and would not be done by any chief executive. And as a result, none of my meetings with the former CJ or the current CJ touched upon cases. This is not the subject of our conversation at all. 多謝大家。